everyone! I'm going to start this off with 4 questions, 4 simple questions, and everybody has to answer it, either to yourself or to everybody else by raising your hand. First question, has anybody in their entire life experienced some type of pain, someplace in their body? Not emotional pain, physical pain, headache, chest ache, arm ache, knee ache, anything. Great. Put your hands up. Great. Second question, is there anybody in this room that's interested in getting rid of that pain without doing anything? No drugs, no surgery, nothing. Tonight, by just sitting in these chairs. This is the third question. Who would like to get up and volunteer for a simple procedure where you don't have to do anything, nothing, except sit in this room, but I need to have somebody that's experiencing pain right this moment. All right, we got one person. Sit right there, please. Anybody else? I'm just going to walk through the crowd here and look. I need to find somebody who's in pain. Now, I'm not talking like, oh, geez, I bumped my elbow this morning and it hurts. I'm talking like you're sitting in the room right now and your body hurts. You feel pain right now. Come on up. Have a seat right there. Experiencing pain right now, acute pain, and it's been with you for a little while. Come on up. Take a seat right over there. What is your name? What is your name?
Rena.
Rena, nice to meet you. Take a seat right over there. Yes. Come on up. What kind of pain are you experiencing? Headache right now. Great. Come on up. Have a seat right there, please. Excellent. No, it's fine. You can keep that on. What kind of pain are you experiencing?
I have bad pain in my toe here. I've had that. It's ongoing. It's really sharp pain.
Okay, it's sharp pain right now.
I have lower back pain, and my back's gone out before, and it feels like it's getting ready to go out tonight.
Excellent. Not excellent, but excellent for the sake of this illustration. So what we're going to do right now, since you've all volunteered, I'm going to spring a little surprise on you. What we're going to do is we're going to take a drop of your blood, because it's not enough for you to know that the pain's gone, but when you want to know why the pain has left. So we're actually, from the inside of their body, we're going to analyze exactly how the pain leaves the body. You guys interested in doing that? You're not afraid of blood? Getting a little pinprick of blood? Excellent. So, Clint, should we take them into the next room to get their blood taken out and then brought back in here? Okay. Okay, so for those of you who are seated in chairs right now, we're actually all going to do the same thing they're doing, except we're not going to measure by taking our blood out. But I can guarantee, even though you're not going to see how it's done, you'll see how it's done on them. The same experience that they're going to have, you're going to have as well. The way we're going to do this, I'm going to bring up my partner in crime, David Wolf. Are you in the house, Dave? David Wolf! Here we go.
Welcome everybody to the Longevity Conference. Thank you, Len Foley. We have a dynamite event lined up for you. This is the likes of which has never been done before, and no expense has been spared. So we're going to ask, and I want to get your agreement on this, that we are going to go all the way. You ready to go all the way with me? Yes? Okay. So we're going to do that all weekend, starting right now, right on until about Sunday night. You know, it's going to feel like 20 minutes, but it's actually going to be a few days. And on Sunday night around 10:30, it's all going to wind down. However, you are going to activate genius. You're going to remember everything, at least subconsciously, that happens here this weekend, and you're going to be able to utilize this information, because one of the things I learned is that I was actually trying to do the impossible, which is getting people to do wheatgrass enemas. And for years of that kind of service, the universe rewarded me with the simplest thing ever. You don't have to leave your seat. You don't have to go anywhere. And this is the most phenomenal discovery that Len and I have ever come across together in the last 10 years that we've been together, working together. So we are actually going to do something that's never been done before, and that is we're going to ground every single person in the first maybe 2/3 of this room.
Hold up, 460 people.
460 people will be grounded.
Yes.
Okay, so what's going to happen is that we have had the developer of this grounding technology come into this room and actually wire up every seat, 460 seats, almost every seat in this room, and except for the back portions and corners and that kind of a thing. And what's going on is that you are going to actually be able to touch the ground. So electrically. Now this wire is connected to a rod that's stuck in the ground outside. And that means that you're going to get electrically connected to the earth. Now you think, well, what could that do? Is that really a big deal? And we're going to find out together that it is a big deal. It's one of the biggest deals ever. And that shoes have been doing a whole lot of damage to us we never suspected. Being in insulated homes with carpets has been damaging us in ways that we never expected. And we're going to find out just how quickly you can remove inflammation and pain from your body. Then, as Len was alluding to, we're going to see it. We're going to see blood normally as we are, which is in shoes running around the world. And then we're going to see what happens when we connect to the earth. Go barefoot, and the only way we can do that in a carpeted room is to connect ourselves electrically this way. We're going to see what that blood looks like in about an hour or so. Does that sound like the best thing ever? Yeah. Okay, so what this is just basically it's an electrical wire. It's a metallic connection to the earth that allows the earth's electricity to touch us. And this actual discovery, the discoverer of whom is here tonight, is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And we're going to not only talk about it, we're going to feel it. And we know from experience what happens when somebody's in pain and they ground themselves. So we know what's going to happen to these four folks who are up here, and it's going to be a miracle. I've seen shocking things occur. 20 years of back pain gone in an hour. Could it be that dramatic? Can there be that big of changes? And the answer is yes. Yes, there can be. One of the great things about this grounding technology, it's a theme that's going to be running through our entire weekend together, is the innovations that have transformed our thinking from better living through chemistry to better living through electromagnetism. And the discoveries are that chemistry cannot happen. It doesn't really exist unless there's electricity. Unless there's magnetism, nothing can live. And so we're going to connect up to the great giant electromagnet, which is our Earth itself. We're going to find out just how powerful it is to touch our Earth directly, which is our mother. So you've got a little connection right there at your seat. And as soon as I get the signal, we'll ground everybody in the room. But if it can reach that spot, then I'd recommend getting that connector right close to where the problem is. Now, we know for sure that this point here, P8 and K1 there on the bottom of your foot, right there between your big toe and your first toe, those are the best places to be grounded. However, if you do have pain and injury somewhere where you can get that cord to, please get it right on the spot. So should we just jump right into it, Len?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go for it.
So let's get everybody to grab their cord. Okay, look under your seat. Now, if you're in the back, you're not going to have a cord. We apologize. We did the best we could. We got 460, which was better than even 400, which was what we planned. Len, do you want to walk them through how to attach?
This cord right here. Now, if you don't have this connected to your seat, do not worry. One amazing thing that you're going to realize from grounding, if one person in the room is grounded, and that person touches physically the other person next to them, and then throughout the entire room, everybody touches each other, everybody in the back who's not grounded specifically to a cord are grounded. Everybody is grounded when you touch each other. So I can be grounded. Dave, maybe
I'm grounded right now. See, he's got shoes on. I'm on a grounded mat here. So if I just go like this,
I'm grounded.
Boom, he's grounded, which means that the electricity of the earth flows through me and touches him. So something to consider.
Okay, right now, here's a grounding tester.
Let's get up here, Len. Can we get it closer? There we
Yes,
go.
right
Okay,
here.
take a look at this, folks.
This is red. That means I'm not grounded. I'm not connected to the earth. There's no negative electrons coming through my body. Now, Dave is grounded. He's going to touch my hand. Now I'm grounded. Now, if you touch me, touch my finger. Now touch the guy next to you. Now everybody touch the person behind you. At this moment, we are all intimately connected. As we touch each other, we are connected to the earth. And get this, we're all connected to every single other person who's connected to the earth. So someone's walking down the street on the beach. It's walking down the street on the beach. Walking on the beach with bare feet. We're connected to them right now in such a profound way. They could be on the other side of the planet. It's amazing, isn't it?
You can put it, okay. K1 is, okay, here we go. Ready? K1 is that point right there between your first two toes, just down on the ball of your foot. Okay, so right or left is either way is fine. Generally, right is receiving, left is giving. The most conductive surfaces on your body is the palm of your hand and the palms of your feet. Okay, so that's something to consider. So if you really want to get the action going, you're going to have to take your shoe off, it looks like, and it's okay. And we're going to find out about taking our shoes off here together and how important that is, not only for the electrical part of being able to connect with the earth, but also for posture. This is a really big deal. A couple of years ago when I met Clint Ober and found out about all this knowledge and information, I decided I was going to start getting into the barefoot revolution. So I started going barefoot, and I noticed over a period of time that it worked off imperfections in the way I was walking and running. And it really had a profound impact on me, and that's why we're so inspired to share with you the information that we're going to share tonight. It's like, okay, it's time to get barefoot again. I mean, we were in Otiro and the great beaches there, and it's just unbelievable, the opportunity to walk barefoot and connect with the earth there. And what an opportunity if you have that to go an hour walk a day barefoot, get your posture sorted out, your hips, your ankles, your knees, get the inflammation down, etc. All right, now let's keep going here. Of course, you know, we're all making positive strides in our health. But we now know that one of the biggest enemies may be the real enemy. Very, very deep, very, very core is, in fact, not the usual suspects. Poor air, poor diet, obesity, genetics, physical inactivity. In fact, what I'm going to talk about is how grounding yourself to the earth affects your genetics and affects your DNA immediately. This is something that's never been discussed in public before, because the shoe is the real deal. This is where the real problems began. Anybody happen across this last year in 2009, great book came out, Christopher McDougall's Born to Run. Who read that book? Two big takeaways from that book, and it's about 40 years of research on the running shoe. And basically, the conclusion of the book is it's all a lemon. What a bad choice of words, right? For something like a bad car is a lemon? Where'd they get that from? It should be called a cheeseburger. But, you know, it's just how it is. 40 years of running shoes, and they found out the whole thing, you don't need running shoes, and in fact, it causes problems. And one of the things I've noticed for myself the last 2 years of playing with barefoot, it might be exactly 2 years this weekend, is your toes are like in a cast when you're in a shoe. So your toes are not activated. This basically affects your posture, and derivatively over your entire life puts distortions into your posture, let alone the electromagnetic phenomenon that's going on. There's also another really good takeaway from that book, and that is the greatest runners in the world, the Tarahumara Native Americans, their main food is chia seed. Their main food is chia seed. Very important, because I took that bit of knowledge and I've been turning on athletes like Marcus Patrick to that. I've been turning on my friend David Daly, he might be watching right now, who did I think he did a marathon, or he was doing some long distance running. And now we're finding out that when we are grounded and that we're taking in the right kind of nutrition, there ain't nothing stopping us. And the greatest runners in the world have this in mind. Okay, let's keep going here. I love this slide. If you look at it, you see like the dog's happy, right? Like there's the gal or guy there with no shoes on. Everything's happy. But you notice that as soon as those shoes go on, irritability starts in. Irritability starts in with the shoes. This is an important discovery. And so that little kind of like is not an accident. And we'll be revisiting these types of images all weekend. In the beginning, we were designed to go barefoot. One of the great assumptions that we've now overturned about food and about shoes is that there's something wrong with our foot and there's something wrong with our food, therefore we need to correct it. Right? That's the whole idea of this food processing industry and the candy industry, is that there's some kind of assumption that Mother Nature doesn't present it to us, or God doesn't present it to us in the way it's supposed to be eaten. Therefore, we need to change things to correct it. Same with our foot. There's some kind of assumption that says, well, our foot's not perfect, so we need to correct it. And the research is showing that our foot is perfect. A really big discovery for me personally is running through the woods barefoot, even in the fall and winter time, I notice I never stub my toe anymore. Ever. But I do stub the ball of my foot quite a bit, because when we walk naturally, our toes come up, so we cannot stub our toe. That's interesting. Now you can feel right away, if you right now lift your toes up, let's all do that. You feel that it's got a derivative effect through all your legs, throughout your whole posture. Do you feel that? Just to lift your toes up. And we can imagine what the effects are over a lifetime. Okay, so now let's talk about what it means to be grounded and what that looks like. If we had a room filled with oxygen, and the room next door had about 8% oxygen, and we're in there going, "Ah." If we opened the door between them, what's going to happen? What happens? Right, it floods in. It's called diffusion. In the plants, it's called osmosis, that everything tries to equal out. And so the oxygen will rush into that room in order to fill that gap, and we'll go, "Oh." And that's exactly what it's like to go barefoot. As soon as you put your foot on the ground, the electricity rushes into you because in most cases, in fact in all cases, we're deficient in the Earth's electrons or electricity. And therefore, the Earth senses an imbalance, and literally it's like suction. It's just drawn right into you. Over time, because we have various gates that block just the immediate absorption of everything, over time, it increases your negative electrical charge, or you gain more electricity. And that's what this idea is. Anytime you have two conductive objects, two rooms next to each other, that make contact, you open the door, such as your bare feet on the ground, the electrons will flow from the place where they are abundant, remember that room with all the oxygen in it, into the place where they're less abundant. The electrical potential of the two objects will thus equalize, and that's called earthing. That's called grounding. And that's when we come to that place of starting to be connected again to the earth. You ever heard this phrase before? We're disconnected. I feel ungrounded. Or you ground your child. Their behaviors are erratic, crazy. You're grounded. Right? The anxiety, the erratic behavior. We're going to look at some slides here that I believe are going to shock you. And this is the science. And Clint has been responsible, it's been about 30 studies now on this subject. And we're just going to be giving you the cliff notes on all that. Pictures, which is great because you can see the bar graphs, you can see the images, you can see how things change over time when you're grounded. We're going to see the blood, what happens, right? You're going to get to feel that. And what's going to end up happening is we're going to see what happens in an hour or two. It's only going to, 20 minutes. All right, so this is the original energy medicine. Does anybody know what K1 is nicknamed in Chinese medicine? What's K1 again? Bubbling well, bubbling spring. That's big, isn't it? Take a good listen to that. Bubbling spring. What happens at a bubbling spring? Energy bursts forth. It's actually electrons burst forth out of the earth. And they're drawn up by suction. And in that moment where it comes forth, that's where you want to drink the water. I've been doing this, and we're going to see you're going to get some insight here about this grounding stuff. Because I've been actually camping out next to sacred springs where the water comes out. Listen to this. Putting a grounding rod into the spring and running it to K1. I'm just taking it literally. It's like, okay, that's bubbling spring this. Let me just see what happens if I connect that. There are a lot of energies, by the way, that we're going to touch on here, having been named various different things. In The Secret Life of Plants, Hieronymus's research was named alloptic energies, which are energies that come out of the earth, that are in the cosmos, that are conducted down metal wires that aren't electromagnetic, that are healthy and healing for you and plants. You also get those things when you're grounded. So somebody asked me a very, very good question in 2009. In April 2009, it was the best question I got all year. In 2009, in April 2009, it was the best question I got all year. Here was a question. How many forces are there? We know there's force of gravity, there's electricity, there's magnetism. How many forces are there out there? Who's got a guess? 4? Thousands and thousands of forces. Because there's a force, for example, if any dentists in the room? Anybody do dentistry? Anybody work with metals or metallurgy? Okay, have you ever found if you're doing like a gold tooth, for example, that to shape the tooth on some days it doesn't work? Has that ever happened to you in your career? I've had dentists tell me that. Why is that? Because there's a force that affects gold that's connected to the sun. If there's something weird happening with the sun, let's say there's an eclipse occurring, or something is going on with the sun with the other planets, there's a lineup, it will screw up the ability of gold to crystallize. That's a force that connects gold to the sun. Do you see that? Now, how far that goes? Anybody here ever studied astrology? You know about the planetary forces then. And it just goes on and on and on. Rudolf Steiner very simply categorized it into two basic forces. There are astrological or meteorological forces, the forces that come from the heavens down, and then there are telluric forces. Very good word. T-E-L-L-U-R-I-C. These are energies that come from the earth and that come up. And we have blocked those telluric forces most of our life. Since we were children, we have not gotten enough of those telluric forces. And what Rudolf Steiner said, this is fast. I finally, after 10 years of trying to unlearn everything, I was finally able to get to a point with Rudolf Steiner where I could read it innocently and get into his mindset. Any students of Steiner here? Students of biodynamic agriculture, Waldorf education? One of the great insights, it's right there, he said that when you are exposed to too much meteorological forces, too much sun energy, without the counterbalancing earth energy or telluric forces, what will occur is crystallization or calcification. You will immediately notice, if you do have calcification troubles, especially in your lower extremities, that when you ground yourself, this is a great grounding pad. This is what I have underneath my computer. Right? So my feet are on that. So when that computer is sending its EMFs at me, yep, it blocks it. It shields you because you become part of the earth, and it just shields goes right over you. We're going to show you that, show you images of that. It's the original medicine. Cortisol. Who is familiar with the research on cortisol that's come to light in the last 10 years? That's indicating that these elevated cortisol levels are bringing forth a whole bunch of problems. We've got sleep disorders, hypertension, the whole list is there, autoimmune conditions, erratic glucose levels, blood sugar, erratic behavior, mood disturbances, decreased immune response, and of course, changes in bone density. Watch this. This is a normal 24-hour cortisol profile. So it changes. Just like everything in our body, very important word, is in a cascade of circadian rhythms. Right? Everything is in a pulsation. Our heart doesn't go boop. Right? What does it do? Bup, up, bup, up, bup, up. It's in a rhythm. That rhythm can speed up, bup, up, bup, up, bup, up, bup, up, or it can slow down. Bup, up, bup, up. But it's a rhythm. That's this. Okay, everything is going on like that. Our hormones are like that, all our neurotransmitters. This is a study that was done. It's called The Biological Effects of Grounding the Human Body During Sleep as Measured by Cortisol Secretion and Subjective Reporting of Sleep, Pain, and Stress. Here it is. On your left side, you're going to see 24-hour cortisol secretion profile before grounding and then after. Immediate changes in cortisol levels. Okay, watch this. Mostly affecting females. Most pronounced effects. You're going to see this pattern coming up quite a bit. And the pattern is, as soon as you ground yourself, all your circadian rhythms go to order. As soon as you unground yourself, they go to chaos. And what Clint has theorized, and I think it's accurate, and has been my experience for sure, is that the earth is a reference point for our circadian rhythms. Which means that every time we touch the earth barefoot, we get it's like Greenwich Mean Time. Do you remember the old days, like the grandfather clock? Every now and then you had to go, I remember when I was a kid growing up in the 70s, we had grandfather clocks in the house. And you notice that after a while it'd go out of time. Remember you had to pull the chain and get the whole thing wound up? But you'd notice after about 3 months, the whole thing was 2 minutes slow all of a sudden. So you had to go call up 555-1212. Isn't that a trip how we forget these things? And then get the exact time and then change it. That's what grounding does for you. It allows your body to get the references. By the way, if you jump into the ocean, boom, you're grounded. You'll notice at any time that you have anxiety, cortisol levels are out of whack, you go jump in the ocean, it's off you. Emotional disturbance, which is electrical disturbance, you jump in the ocean, boom, it's off of you, just like that. You go jump into an ice-cold lake, whatever's gone wrong has gotten better all of a sudden. You can't even remember what you were thinking about at that point. I remember when Super Goji Girl first came to work for me years ago. And I said, you're going to be jumping into ice cold water. You're going to want to. She said, no, I'm not going to want to. Now she's beating me into the water. That much of a turnaround. That much of a flip around. Because you start to feel such health benefits. And it's electrical. It's an electrical phenomenon. And those electrons, that electricity rushes into you. And that's what you feel, isn't it? You jump in ice cold water, it's a rush. That's what's occurring. Very important if you've been in planes, trains, or automobiles. Because it's rubber. We're not connected to the earth, and so what it builds up is a static charge, static electricity. And we're going to talk about, this is the first time it's ever been revealed to the public, how you can be grounded in your car. How you can tune into that so you get less irritability while driving, you're awake longer, can focus longer. This is important if you're driving 8 hours at a stretch. I have to do that quite a bit. Very important information. Okay, let's keep going. So here's what the results are indicating. The grounding the human body to the earth during sleep reduces nighttime levels of cortisol and resynchronizes cortisol hormones to more in alignment with the natural 24-hour rhythm. Changes were most apparent in women. Why do you think that is? Because generally there's more circadian rhythm issues going on in women, right? More hormones, more of a variety of hormones. And women generally can't kind of go against the nature's laws as much as men can. Otherwise, things will come up. Yeast infections come up, things that will throw the female body out of balance faster than men. So that's why it's usually women who show up to health lectures, right? Because you can't get away with the transgressions as much. We know now, too, this is something I'm going to be hinting on all weekend long, that there is something going on with the thyroid and these electrons. Rudolf Steiner described it this way, and again, I can't say enough about Rudolf Steiner. I'm absolutely shocked by what I'm reading every time I read Rudolf Steiner. He said that we're basically a plant that's been turned upside down. Like the baby in its natural position is upside down, isn't it? It's inverted. The yogis, in their mastery of the physical realm, their mastery of longevity, what are they doing? They're upside down. They're inverted. So what is it about this inversion? Well, one of the things is that our negatively charged pole is right there in our neck. It's right on our thyroid, which to me indicates, and I don't have exact evidence of this, but to me it indicates that our thyroid is a very large sink for electrons. Meaning that if we run deficient in earth energy, that our thyroid starts going, whoa, something's wrong here. And this is one of the reasons why the yogis always recommended that when you get upside down, like in yoga, which we're doing at 7:30, recommended is that you get your neck right flat on the ground in that queen pose, which is shoulder stand. So you can touch the electricity of the earth right there to your neck so you can get those electrons flowing right into your thyroid. Now, this has been profound, and actually I was talking with Clint about this yesterday, or the day before. This has been so profound that it's actually been found if you ground yourself to the earth, you've got to cut your thyroid medication. And there are implications here. So this is something to be very aware of. And we also know with blood thinner medication, as we're going to see, that you've got to be also very careful, and you've got to work with a physician or someone who can help you to cut back in a way that's appropriate to the new homeostasis that you're going to settle into when you're grounded. Okay, let's keep going. This buzzword, inflammation, I think it hit Newsweek magazine and Time magazine. It was about 6 years ago. Do you remember when that hit? And it's like, okay, now we're on to this whole idea of inflammation. That it appears that the big undertaker that's taken us out, bad problems with the ankles, hips, chronic inflammation, injury, trauma that never goes away, that it's something to do with this inflammation, which just keeps producing an immune response that evolves into constant and chronic pain. Now, I sat down with Clint last night. He said there is no inflammation in nature. It can't exist. That inflammation is a response that's a free radical response, and normally you're touching the ground. Immediately, the electricity of the earth neutralizes all the free radical damage, and you can have no inflammation. Yep, You know where this goes pretty darn quick. It's because we're going to see it. Because there's some folks here who have been in pain for a while. And we're going to see how quickly they go out of pain. There's Time Magazine 2004. So that's 7 years ago, basically. This is what's been attributed to all this inflammation, all the different conditions, chronic this, chronic that, chronic neck pain. I know there's a lot of people who won't admit it, but who will admit neck pain? Okay, who won't admit anything no matter what I say? Who here will never raise their hand no matter what? Okay, good. Look at it. Look at the list. The relationship between osteoporosis and grounding will be explored, and it's a big one. The relationship between all the different conditions. MS, there was a woman called the other day, what was her issue? It wasn't MS, it was fibromyalgia. Is that on the list? I mean, these are issues that are related to having electricity problems. And it's the shoe. The rubber-soled shoe is a big factor in this. And then also buildings, first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, fifth, you know what I'm going here to here? 30th floor, that we are so high up in the atmosphere, big problems can develop. 40% more strokes on the second floor than the first floor. Just two-story house. Because there's a voltage change as you go higher up in the atmosphere. The higher up you are with no ground to connect you to the earth, the more troubles will arise and the faster, and the worse the inflammation will be. Okay, so this is what we're hearing. This is in the media. You've seen it. Chronic inflammation, that's the engine that is really creating this, the aging. It's really associated with aging. I want to put this up here because when you ground yourself, as you've done, there is an instantaneous change in your skin conductance. It's instantaneous. So let's say somebody has a skin issue. What do those look like? Let's name some. Psoriasis. What else? Right? Yep, dermatitis. Yep, seborrhea. You got it. Acne. Rosacea, hives. So all of this stuff is improved immediately, instantly when you ground. It's instantaneous. There's the chart right there. That you can see where it happens. I'm going to point it out. So right there is the moment of grounding. Look at the change. Boom, boom, instant. You can see it over here, folks, if you're on this side. Boom, the instant you ground, your skin conductance changes. That then cascades deeper and deeper. And just from my own research on looking at all the studies that Clint's given me over the years, is I've been able to see that it takes about 10 minutes for the other things to start coming in. Because our body's gated. Do you know what I mean by that? It's like we're in a gated community. All those electrons just can't charge in and vandalize the place. Right? Our body's like, okay, hold on. You're going to go through gate 1, skin first. Then deeper, second, muscle tissue. Then it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And eventually, if you're paying attention, it starts getting to those deep-seated issues in our organs, in those places deep inside our tissue where there can be positive charges or deficiency of charges, which may be called things like tumors. Excessive growth. Excessive growth. So we're starting to see, we're starting to see a relationship between our body's ability to inhibit excessive growth. What's that? I mean, I was just reading up on ovarian cysts. Ovarian cysts come and go with what? Hormone cycles. If the hormone cycle is way out of balance, the grandfather clock is suddenly 30 minutes behind, then all of a sudden a cyst can grow out of control. And the body can't draw it back again because the circadian rhythms are out of balance. What happens then? Well, then we start to develop such large growths that I remember a young girl that I went to school with, she had a gigantic grapefruit-sized cyst removed from her body because her body couldn't bring it back, couldn't reabsorb it because of the circadian rhythm issues. How do we keep that in balance? Just simply walking barefoot, touching the earth, connecting to the earth. There's a revolution coming in homes, the way we construct homes, what's happening on our first floor, the way that yoga studios are constructed. It was given to me, the first yoga mat that's grounded. You can't believe it. There's no way I can use anything else now. A grounded yoga mat. All right, now here's what we're going to find out, because we've got our group here. How's your fingers doing? You guys get pricked a little bit there? So we got the blood sample. That's good. Here's what we're going to see in their blood. Here's what's been researched. Gaetano's going to be here. He's the scientist behind this. Pre-grounding, we see the clumping. Post-grounding, instant change of the charge on every cell. The cell is electrical, not chemical. The cell is electrical, not chemical. And therefore, as soon as the electrons are available, boom, the charge comes onto the cell, and it's able to produce a zeta potential, which keeps every cell bouncing off of every other cell, but not clumping with every other cell. The clumping is electroplating. It means that there's a deficiency of electrons. Everybody's trying to get together to try to get the oxygen or to get wherever the charge is. Does that make sense? Like, you know, if we weren't all grounded, we'd all be touching each other and clustering up next to each other to try to get to the person who is grounded. So we can just, we're all, it's like, oh, we want what you got. And that's kind of what happens to our blood. My opinion about this is that this is going to lead to a dramatic change in our longevity. You can see it. It's pretty obvious. This is great. I was with my friend John Butcher, who's friends with our crew over here, down in Indonesia. And one of the things that you see in Indonesia is you see people who are 70 years old and they're cut and ripped. I mean, they're like ripped. Like, you look at their stomach, you're like, that dude's like 70. What? And it's like, okay. And so this had John just completely baffled. He's like, what is the story? He's like, what is this? And I said, these guys barefoot. It's because they're barefoot. They're barefoot every day. They don't wear shoes down there. If they wear shoes, it's on a street, it's a flip-flop. And even then, they're grabbing their plants, they're doing things in the earth, they're touching the earth. And so over a period of your lifetime, what ends up happening is your circadian rhythms, your overall metabolism, the structure of your body, everything's completely different. Isn't that the best news ever? This is the best news ever this weekend. Connection between irritability and not being grounded. Clint told me that. When I first met Clint at his office, first thing he said is that when somebody's not grounded, there's a change in their lungs. Immediately, their body goes into a subtle level of stress. Cortisol levels go erratic, right? And then there's a subtle irritability that builds up. I was in an airplane. It's hard to not notice it, but the stewards and stewardesses, right? They just flew 8 hours from here to there, and then 8 hours over from there to there, and this, that, and the other thing. And my God, you look at him, you're like, dude, that guy's like irritable. You know how they get sometimes? Like, it brings in the compassion because you start to see the cause of it. You start to see the cause. I was almost born in Newark Airport. I've been flying an airplane since I was a little kid. I'm so happy about this because I know exactly what to do now. As soon as I get outside the airport, what do? I walk right over to the grass, kick the flip-flops off, and stand on the grass and go, and 15 minutes waiting there. There's the cement right there, right? And then underneath the building, the cement's grounded as long as it's enough moisture, right? But the grass is wet, so boom, it's just pulling that stuff off of you. It's recharging you with the electricity of the earth, and you're starting to immediately come into balance with where you are on the planet. Now, for those of us who are sun gazers in here, anybody into sun gazing? The great immortal practices of sun gazing, one of the things you can really do with this in mind is you sun gaze barefoot wherever you are in the world, wherever that plane deposits you. If Pan Am Airlines delivers you in Tehran, Iran, first thing you do is you get out of that plane, you get barefoot. As soon as that sun sets, you watch that last minute or two barefoot on stone, and you're recalibrated. And that's why I can travel all over the world, and I don't get sick, don't get tired, don't get wiped out, don't get irritable. Well, not that irritable. But just little tricks like that. Okay, so now this is something that we're going to look at a bunch of images here. This is delayed onset muscle soreness. This is the way that I first heard about grounding technology years ago. I remember thinking about this because somebody told me somewhere that the Tour de France was using this grounding technology. And that they were grounding themselves at night when they slept so that they wouldn't get this delayed onset muscle soreness, and that was the cause of, I think, the American team, won 4 years in a row or something like that. Anyway, these images they're going to indicate something is going on. And that is, order is brought in as soon as you ground yourself, and disorder accumulates when we're ungrounded, which creates this delayed onset muscle soreness, which affects performance. It's very important for athletes. I remember thinking when I was in my room one time, and this is the first time I ever heard about this grounding thing, I was like, okay, I'd have to run a wire out the top of this building, down outside, there's all pavement over there, then I have to run a wire over the pavement to cross the street into the ground, and it kind of ended there for me. Until I realized, due to Clint's education, that you got a grounding wire in every single home in America. Right? It's already brought to you. You're on the 30th floor in New York City. It's been brought right to you. Now that awareness brought something very interesting into my consciousness. Again and again it comes up, and that is, everything you need is always immediately around you. Right? We're on the 30th floor. We're in New York City. What do? Right there, the answer is right there. It's always immediately around you what you need. Okay, let's look at some of these images. There's what the study was about. Again, we're looking at markers, delayed onset muscle soreness. We're looking at eosinophils, white blood cell counts, red blood cell counts, etc. So here's white blood cells. Grounded, dramatic decrease, which you can see right here what this means. See that the blue part of the graph there, that line? What's going on there? It means that the white blood cells are ramping up because there's inflammation. But if we're grounded, there's no inflammation, so everything just goes right back down. Look at this here, same type of thing. Neutrophils, when we're not grounded, the inflammation is greater, increases. So as we're grounded, draws that right back down. Here we see it again. Look at that. Lymphocytes. What's a lymphocyte? White blood cell again. And boom, drops when we're grounded. Here it is again. These markers are really important because if we've been studying the name of the game when it comes to cancer, when it comes to aging in general, even cardiovascular disease, pretty much all evidence is pointing to immune system. If we've really been paying attention, it's all pointing, saying, okay, if our immune system is strong enough, we're going to be able to knock out whatever it is. And if our immune system isn't, we're going to be in trouble. Has anybody come to that conclusion from studying the research? It seems to be pointing to that, if we're at that level of understanding. Because like inflammation, okay, that's whatever, but if our immune system is able to deal with the inflammation and what's underneath it, the calcification, it's all going to be cool. But if it's not going to be cool. If our immune system is able to get on top of the tumors, it's going to be okay. If it's not able to, trouble. So we see here that our immune system is activated in a way where we're not crying wolf for 4 days in a row after our, say, cycling tour or whatever it is that we do for our exercise. Okay, look at this right here. Bilirubin levels. Now, bilirubin is the premier antioxidant in your body. It's secreted by your liver. Look at the difference here. Look what's going on. When we're grounded, our bilirubin is dramatically different, meaning our bilirubin is called up and it has to deal with an inflammatory condition. Therefore, it's going to be doing a lot more work than it needs to. As soon as we're grounded, that changes like that. And that's one of the biggest differences that I've seen in the research is on bilirubin. That grounding dramatically changes what the bilirubin is doing in your body. All the history on this earth, we'd always been grounded. There was no way to not be grounded. Right? There's no way to not be on the earth. Even if you're in a tree, the tree's grounded. Right? So you're climbing around a tree, swinging around, you're still touching the earth because you're touching the tree and the tree's touching the earth. But somehow, in our history, we figured out a way to be ungrounded almost at all times, except when we're in the shower. That's a lot of cases. That's the only time somebody's grounded. They get in the shower, and then they go, oh, my cover of my book's going to look like this. Right? Oh, okay, yeah, that's how I'm going to solve the problem. They get the inspiration. Does that happen to anybody? How many people believed it was the negative ions coming off the falling water? That may have something to do with it, right? But it isn't the whole picture. Because part of this, and we'll see the image, I've made sure, I was like, Len, we got to get this image in there. Clint, we need this image. And that is your left brain hemisphere radically changes the moment you ground yourself. meaning all the chaos and stuff in the left brain, the abacus, stuff that's going, okay, well, 2 plus 2 is 4, but then what about if we divide it by 3? And then how about this? And then, all that mathematical stuff and like, well, okay, last year I paid this much in taxes. Now if I make this, I'm going to pay that much, and this is going to be like this. And it's like that whole computational side of your brain goes shh, and quiets down, which is not what's seen in the right brain. Grounding affects the left brain more than the right brain. That's big news. That's very big news. Okay, let's keep going. Look at these numbers. So now we've got different grounding changes in, this is the PI to PCR ratio. What's that, Clint? That's the, Gaetan, what do we got there?
Okay, so these were done with MRIs, and what they measure basically is the certain molecules that are in the blood, and that reflects again inflammation. So you can see that when you are grounded, again, this goes down. There's no inflammation. So that's basically saying the same thing.
Gaetan, are you French Canadian?
Yes, I am.
I never would have guessed that.
No, I'm sure.
Big stuff here.
So,
when we get into these practices, one of the things that we're going to see is that it's really everybody can do this. We're naturally designed for this. One of the fundamental themes, and I'm sure you'd agree, Gaetan, is that we are naturally designed for health. We have to work very hard to construct houses that are ungrounded.
Yes.
We have to work very hard to create rugs that separate us from the earth. We have to work very hard to create a shoe that is able to stay on our foot and be able to run around in it, that's made out of a rubber sole. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so the default position is always healthy. Okay, so I just want to put that out there, so just so we're not, there's no working for health. What we're really doing is we're working to remove those things that are blocking it. More than that, right? Like, okay, so how do we get to what we really want to? We're removing all those things that are in the way. It could be a stove that's in the way. It could be the rubber sole, right? It could be, a whole bunch of different things.
Okay, I just wanted to tell all of you, because last night I said, my pain had gotten a little bit better, but it still hurt when I went to bed. I went to bed and I wrapped the sheet around me, all from my lower back to my feet, and I woke up at 5, not only having 3 hours of sleep in the last 24 hours, not only rested, but my back pain was completely gone. And then this morning, after I wasn't grounded, my sciatica started to hurt. Sitting here for, 20 minutes, my sciatica pain's completely gone. So get the sheet.
As everybody knows, and for those of you who weren't in this room last night, what did we do? We took 4 people, picked them out of the audience who had acute pain, not last week, not next week, but right now, in the moment last night. We brought them up, we took their blood out, a little drop of it, and we measured it on a screen. We grounded them for only 1 hour, did the exact same thing, took their blood out, measured it on a screen, and now on the screen we actually have the comparison between the two. You heard the testimonials last night about the diminished pain, sometimes even the elimination of pain. Now you're going to see what the blood looked like. And remember, everybody in this room right now who's grounded. Who's grounded? Very important. When you see the blood that's up here, that's the first, is that the first person or the second? Okay, this is the first person. Ungrounded blood and grounded blood. And Dave, do you want to say a little bit about the difference between what they're actually looking at right now?
Okay, so this is a sample. This is just a simple blood sample. These are red blood cells, and each red blood cell you can see on the left side is, on both sides of the room, or on the right side over here, or on the left side over here, is they're agglutinated, which means they've lost what's called your zeta potential. And that's kind of like when you take 2 negatively charged sides of a magnet, you try to push them together, or 2 positively charged, there's a push away. That's called zeta potential, basically, simplifying it. So every cell should have that little bit of repellence to every other cell, but when they're deficient in electrons, then we have that agglutination. And when the electrons are available, all of a sudden everything has its appropriate charge, and each red blood cell is kind of separate from every other red blood cell, and the charge change takes about an hour, and that's why we grounded them for at least an hour before we did the second blood test, and these are the results. Let's do the next one if we could real quickly. Look at this one. I mean, major changes here. And this is why, I mentioned it last night, I'm going to mention it again because not everybody was here last night. If you're on blood thinner medication, you got to be careful when you ground yourself because you're going to cut your medication in half or 3/4. It just drops it right off because it's changing radically your blood profile. I also mentioned that thyroid medication as well will be dropped off. So these are things you've got to be looking into if you're taking those kinds of things. There are natural blood thinners and natural thyroid medications, like maca is natural thyroid. Natural blood thinner, does anybody know where Coumadin comes from?
Oh, wait, is this yours? No, that's yours. Okay.
Where was it isolated out of? It's isolated out of an herb. Tonka beans. Now, tonka beans taste like vanilla. Listen to this. I don't know if you know this story, but tonka beans taste like vanilla. And in Mexico, they were cutting a lot of these vanilla extracts with tonka bean. And so what was happening is people were getting excessively thinned out blood from taking the vanilla in their drinks and things. Isn't that a trip? So this is one of these things we've got to be aware of. Let's look at the next one. Look at that. So in every case, we see that the zeta potential is restored within an hour. Now, this question comes up quite a bit. It's a very good question. How long do you need to be grounded a day? Of course, that was the first question I asked Clint when I first met him. As much as you can. That's the answer, as much as you can. But we know at least an hour is going to give you results like this. At least an hour. But really, it's as much as you can. If you can be grounded 24 hours a day, great. If you can't, you just do the best you can. And that's where this whole sleeping technology came from. You know, how did Clint come up with the idea of putting people on grounded sheets? Well, he realized, okay, when are people actually going to do this? When they're not going to be doing anything else.